Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all. Oh, and Arwen, my bad. And we've lost Refracted Curvature.
Yeah, he has an appointment with a doctor, he said. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, good morning from Discord.
Morning.
Hooray! Good morning from Discord. Don't have to fret and stress about no responses. Happy days. Hey, and we've got Quantum Racer here early. What's going on? I'm in the middle of breakfast. Oh, okay, QE. We'll leave you to it then. Jolly good. Nice to have you in this early hour of the morning. Any evidence?
What a treat.
Yes, what a treat to get zero response out of him. Right at the beginning of the live show. I should have really checked if he was actually around beforehand, but there we go. Hey, Steve.
Daylight savings time.
Of course, getting that extra hour. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not today.
It only exists in the math.
To even state it, you're going to need an R.
They told me off in Bev's chat. They were like, I asked for R, and they're like, what R? What do you mean R? I was like, Earth radius. And they're like, nobody called that R. Really? Okay, fine. Earth radius. Any evidence of Earth radius?
ER,
You
you
know how many
mean?
times we actually have to spend 5 minutes explaining to them that their horizon is the edge of their sphere. They seem to have claimed that boats and buildings can be blocked, but then still don't link the idea that that is a physical edge that has to be there, which is set by the radius, like you just say. It seems like the first 10 minutes now of these arguments, you actually have to explain that and make sure that they understand that before you can go ahead.
Yeah, the Earth radius is currently in the ER being intubated.
What about any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Tap, tap, tap. Is this thing on?
Reference frames
What a
ruined.
ludicrous preponderance that.
You're gonna need R for that.
I've lost track of the order. Where were we? Self-perpetuating molten iron
rotation.
core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Any evidence of that?
Nope, nothing whatsoever. Was a big topic in my show today, or rather, terrestrial things concerning lava tubes, caves, and what is beneath the ocean floor. Like, what is actually beneath there? Is there lava of any kind? Probably not, but we haven't dug deep enough to even figure it out. And also, geothermal heat isn't to be found everywhere, only near volcanic regions. So, what is really beneath all that? We still don't know.
You guys remember the movie 2012 when they said that the world was going to end due to the Mayan calendar? And they said that the crust was destabilizing on top of the magma. And the whole movie was about the floor falling into itself and lava shooting up. And it's such an amazing, if we were floating on these little rafts of land on top of a magma soup, you would expect that type of radical transformation of the surface all the time. Whereas we've got a very stable surface, no movement is ever registered, except for maybe the occasional earthquake. But the actual surface doesn't move, so it can't be rafted floating on top of a magma lake.
Right, and also the oceanic floor. Look at how incredibly even that whole thing is. That giant surface is one of the most even things out there. Like even underneath all the fallout dust that is dropped to the ocean bottom, underneath that, it's very even. So if there was something liquidy underneath a layer of rock, well, it would probably become more uneven. It would wobble around. It would cave in at spots. Well, the ocean doesn't seem to do that. The ocean floor is very even, making the chances that there's anything other than pure solid rock underneath very unlikely, in my opinion.
Well, what about the cola hole?
Go ahead, Chaos.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. What about the cola hole that went 7.5 miles down into the crust? And they said that it was abandoned because of the temperatures that reached 356 degrees Fahrenheit.
What about it?
Did that borehole even reach Mariana Trench bottom depth? I think that the borehole was dug a whole lot higher.
Yeah, it was only like a fraction of the crust.
Right.
But they claim that it reached 356 degrees Fahrenheit, which if they were to dig deeper and deeper, it would get hotter and hotter, yeah?
But did the drill bit actually generate that heat, or is there literally a measurable constant heat down there even after the drill was removed?
It actually gets hotter down there.
Well, that I don't know. I do not know that. They don't claim if the drill was producing the heat or if the ground was producing the heat.
Or both.
Both are considered 12
there you
kilometers.
go. So it wasn't isolated. It could have simply been that the drill couldn't handle it.
Either way, we're talking about 12k here. $12k? Hello? We're not talking like 39, 59 miles.
Correct. Also, by the way, the steel, when it twists, like a long drill is going to be basically like a giant pillar that's contorting. Contorting also creates heat. Ever try to bend metal? It heats up.
Why are we talking about heat?
Because it was brought up. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, he was talking about on his show about how the volcano and molten lava or whatever was found X amount of miles or whatever in the ground. So I brought up the cola hole, stating that it was 356 degrees in that hole, but I don't know if it was generated by the drill or if it was coming from the ground.
As I understand it, from the ground, but also obviously the heat is going to be generated from the friction of the drill bit also. That is going to be causing more heat, but no, it just gets hotter as they got down further.
Right, but is it like a radiation heat or is it simply a heat
I
from
don't
the pressure
know,
of
but
all.
who cares?
Sorry, I've been talking about this for like 2 hours.
Okay, I mean, fascinating though it is to look into the borehole, right? We're talking about molten iron core. Now, the establishment of a core, the establishment of it with a 12K or whatever it is, 8 mile deep drill hole, it kind of seems completely unrelated. If you're talking about volcanoes, the same thing applies. They've got absolutely nothing to do with molten iron cores, and everything to do with the claim of a ring of fire based on tectonic activity. That's what the current claim is, global or otherwise.
Yeah, it would be
Right, isn't
just as
that silly?
equally preposterous if they dug down and hit water and then presumed that the center was made of water.
The problem
And
is they
actually,
haven't done
metal
that.
loses its magneticism over with heat. The more heat applied, the less magnetic it gets.
Who
So
says
stating
there?
that we have a molten iron core, there's nothing magnetic to it.
Why is there a presupposition that when you're digging down, you're digging to a center or something?
Arwin? I assume that was directed at you.
I didn't use that word, did I? I'm just digging down. I didn't use the word center. I'm not being bald.
I think I did.
All right.
Any more for this on molten iron cores?
What's been the longest addressal of the housekeeping question to date, I think. No evidence whatsoever. Not even
no
a clue.
evidence, yeah.
It's pure fiction. It's pure fiction. Every indication ever to try and get close to figuring out evidence for it has always yielded pretty much exactly the opposite.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I think it's over there somewhere. I'm not sure. Kind of hazy.
Right, we interrupt this housekeeping session for a quick e-begging session. So I got my first reply from my projector repair, and before they've even started the repair, they've said that the lamp has a massive amount of hours on it and needs replacing at a cost of 300 quid, which is devastating, considering that this seems to imply that there's going to be further bills to follow, which isn't great, but there we go. So before I've even started with them fixing it, they already want 300 quid out of me, which is devastating, especially on a crappy month. Several people did already send me PayPal money, which I am very, very grateful for, which definitely softens the blow. But yeah, I could do with some help. If it escalates, they do keep piling on various parts that it needs, then I might end up doing a GoFundMe, which I really don't want to do because it's only a couple of years old. Anyway, smash the PayPal link if you'd like to support me. I say PayPal link because that's immediate, and yeah, I'm gonna have to pay this bill just to get them get going on it and actually get the damn thing fixed. There we go. Such is life. So that's the first devastating bit of news I've had in that regard. Life ain't gonna get easier. So yeah, there you go. End of e-begging. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
I'm sorry. Haven't you tried to look around? Like maybe there's a really cheap ones. Like there's overproduction, whatever. Maybe you could get lucky somewhere on eBay or something.
What are you talking about? This is something I bought a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to replace the damn thing.
Very
I don't
quickly.
want to. Arwin, what are you doing?
Oh, sorry.
Look, I want to just draw a line into that. I will use the opportunity to e-beg again, though. Smash the PayPal link to relieve my stress level. Yeah. It's just one of those things, Arwin. It's just the solution to this problem is money. That's it. So, as much as I'm going to stutter and stammer over going, yeah, I need money to fix this problem. I've been doing it for the last week, and in drips and drabs, people have been sending me money. So, like I say, you know who you are. Thank you very much indeed. Anyway, let's just draw a line under me e-begging. I don't want to make this into a show purely about e-begging. I thought I let you go because I thought you were answering the gas pressure without a container question. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure? No, it's all right. I don't mind nattering on a little
Can I
bit more.
eat back for myself a bit? No, just kidding. But my
Gas
monitor
pressure.
is kind of dying, so I think I need to replace it.
Your monitor?
Whatever. Yeah. It takes me like 15 minutes minimum to get it started up now.
You should do a GoFundMe for a monitor. Anyway, that's something you can sort out on your own.
All right.
But startup is not monitor related.
This is monitor related. If it's on my show, this is my corner. I'll be e-begging on this corner. God damn it. Arwin, get lost. Go to your own damn corner.
I call for people to support you too on my show.
Gas pressure without a container before Arwin utilises my PayPal e-begging session to see if he can get a new monitor out of it. I'm already knee-deep in e-begging for monitor requirements. You can do that off your own back. I'm sure people would support you if you did a GoFundMe for a new monitor, Arwin.
I'm probably going to do that. But yeah, gas pressure without a container, well, you can't even calculate it like that. Right? So the idea of gas pressure without a container is a pure mind-based fiction because there is no tangible way to do anything with it. You can't calculate it. You can't test it. There's no way to do anything to prove that is a possibility.
Anybody had any progress in terms of gas pressure without a container? Discord, I'm talking to you.
Nope. Only if you use 2 containers.
That's what I was waiting to hear. 2 containers, you say?
No, it cannot be demonstrated without even 1 container. I just wanted to go back to the question about the distance to the sun. I was watching a documentary on a solar eclipse yesterday, and as the solar eclipse occurs and there's that blacking, that complete blackout of the sun, technically when staring at the sun, there's always the glare issue that you can never distance light. And they say bouncing a laser toward the sun basically just gets absorbed into the sun. But if it was blackened, wouldn't we then be able to determine some kind of a distance, potentially bouncing off the darkened portion? I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of something along those lines.
Anybody? I haven't.
Well, what goes darker, the sun or the moon?
Because, for example, like when you take a giant spotlight and you shine it at someone, they can't see it until you put an object in front of it. Then you can suddenly gain an idea of a distance to that based on the fact that the glare has been removed from the vision. And then once it's blackened out, or you can see that little halo effect of light around the spotlight, you'd be able to say the spotlight was at 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers. So wouldn't that be a more accurate way to determine the sun's distance? If it was a physical object to measure in the first place.
I was going to say, when you slap on that assumption, everyone can jump in. Go ahead, Darwin, you got there first.
Yeah, if it was a physical object, we would be able to do all kinds of things with it. We would be able to approach it. We would be able to see the angular size of it grow as we do. We would have the inverse square law being applied, making it more intense as we approach all these things. Yeah, if it was a physical object. But all those elements seem to be quite elusive. So it seems to just move with you at the apparent distance it has as you try to approach it or move at all. And doesn't seem like inverse square law of light is applying in any sort of form. It's just the universal intensity of the sunlight. And then it's gone. And then there's no remnant, no like light basically cascading around the Earth to the dark side, which would probably happen if it was really that giant, intense ball of light to which the inverse square law applied. Well, then there wouldn't really be a night sky. We would just have glare from the daylight going around it, probably. And we don't. Night skies are very dark. Right.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Hold up. You ain't getting any radio bounce or light wave bounce off the sun. The sun's a black body. It absorbs all light incident on it, according to their story. So there you
Have
go.
you
Right in
heard-
Discord.
Have they ever tried that during an eclipse?
An eclipse.
Because I was talking about a solar eclipse when there's some kind of a darkening, then would it still, I guess if it's a black body, it'll still be a black body regardless.
Yeah, still a black body. Black body's a black body. You can't be an imperfect black body. You're either a black body or you're not. You're either pregnant or you're not. 1 or a 0. Simple as that. That's according.
a
You
good
can look at
point.
it in Discord if you'd like. 27 minutes after the hour.
That's a very good point, John. But on the other hand, there are plenty of baller speculators out there that actually think that they can get to a point where they can measure dark matter, right? So if they think they can do that, then they'll probably think that they can actually measure the black body of the sun. So
Dark matter is a different story than what we're talking about.
it's even worse.
No, dark matter is definitely worse. Yes.
Right. So if they think that they can measure that and they speculate on that constantly, not like, oh, what if we could measure it? No, they just say, no, I'm convinced I can measure that. So if they're convinced
Measure
that they
what?
can measure dark matter, then yeah, the leap to thinking that you could measure the black body of the sun is not that far, not that crazy to them.
I'm not following.
A little early, maybe. Anybody getting this?
Yeah, I think he was just drawing a correlation between the dark, it's a dark body, and dark energy being
No, that's
unable
not
to
what
be
we're talking
seen.
about. Yeah, that's nonsense.
But dark, the way that they use it, does imply that it cannot be seen.
Yeah, but if you're staring right at a lunar or solar eclipse, isn't the light would still cancel out? It would still cancel out. Are we talking about a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse?
Solar, when it's a darkening in front, like the US solar eclipse that occurred, that one where it was a totality across the whole continent. That one specifically, it was like something as it darkened to the point of almost being midnight, with something in front of the sun, or the sun eclipsing itself, whatever it's doing. It was like this moment of suddenly you could almost register that the sun was much further away. Like while it's still glaring and it's bright, it feels like the sun is closer. It could have just been the camera. But as it darkened, it seemed to almost give a real tangible location to it, because now you just had this glowing ring and this black core in the middle. And I was thinking, if it was the moon blocking it, we should be able to bounce a signal off whatever that darkened portion is. But then I also thought, why doesn't it gravitationally lens when that's occurring? Why doesn't the sunlight bend around the moon and we still have daylight anyway? So they've always got two answers for everything. Just depends which context they need.
Yeah, but you're not radar ranging the sun that way. You're bouncing something off the darkened portion in front of the sun, right? What is that? See, this is all
Which is the
convoluted.
moon?
man.
Which is the moon then?
It's presumed to be, but not proven to be.
Exactly. It's all convoluted mess.
And like you say, you'd actually be determining the distance of whatever that was. You're still not determining the sun. So
Well, then there's another problem because you have the fairy tale moon in supposedly a vacuum, right? Well, that can't be. So you have to figure out the medium between you and what you're bouncing off of. That's another problem. So there's so many unknowns, and then there's what you don't know. Yeah.
Right, I'll use that little gap to do a couple of super chat shout outs. So, Hunting FTFE. When FTFE looked up, lick that globe, salt liquor, I'd hung from the dong tree. Man, this is difficult to read, James Richard. Got 'em right between the eyes. Okay, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Really appreciate your support, James Richard. Also, I think it was Ben White. Yes, it was. Ben White, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Support what you like, or it goes away. Indeed. Thank you very much for the super chats. Really appreciate the support. So we segued straight away from, or back from, any scientific evidence of gravity to the sun, which is fine. Good conversation, by the way. But is there any scientific evidence of gravity?
It's like saying, is there any scientific evidence for unicorns? Because gravity doesn't exist. But which gravity are we talking about?
Can I use the biology of a unicorn textbook to prove that unicorns are real? Is that okay?
You could. Yes, you could.
Cool.
In
That
your
obvious-
mind.
you can think of it as such. Yeah.
First, you'd have to establish gravity as something real. Good luck. First, define it. I'd like to hear that one.
Yeah, but it's talked about a lot and written down quite a lot, and Einstein's got some field equations, so therefore it's a real thing.
Field equations. Equations aren't real. Mathematics is abstract. So,
Yeah, but those equations are describing reality.
describing reality. Well, I want to know what reality they're describing. So,
Gravity.
Einstein's space and time, right? Well, space and time are concepts. You're going to give me an equation for a concept? Really? So, two abstractions equal reality?
No,
I don't think so.
but if you imagine a piece of rubber stretched out, then imagine a bowling ball in the middle making like a well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now imagine that if you're on top of a tennis ball or inside like a Zorb ball, so you're like, running along inside the ball. Imagine how if you ran straight, right, on the lip of that well.
Holy shit.
What's wrong? What's the problem here? I'm doing a really good job here. What's wrong?
Shit. This is what we call in the industry a yarn.
A yarn?
Yeah.
Like spinning you a yarn?
Yes.
No, I'm describing geodesics. I feel slightly offended by you claiming that geodesics bending in space-time with a Zorb ball example is somehow a yarn. That's outrageous.
What's
like
a geodesic?
More like a ball of wool laid out seemingly in a straight line, but actually wrapping around the edge of a well. Yeah, we can use a ball of wool. That works equally well. Kudos to you.
Mhm.
Is that a no then?
Back to reality.
Yeah, back to reality. No scientific evidence of gravity then.
No, gravity, it's a misnomer. There's nothing there.
Has there been further discussion on Riley's egg demonstration? In that I heard in 24/7 that they were talking about adding sugar to the water to increase density but not increase the electroconductivity of the water, and that the egg didn't rise when adding sugar. So therefore, almost taking it to a new degree, that there is definitely a downward bias that's
Hold
electrostatic.
on, hold on. Let me get it straight.
Hold on a second. Let me jump in.
Wait a second.
Yeah, everyone's
hold
getting
on.
annoyed with
Let
that.
me jump in quickly. There's a mistake here.
With a giant question mark at the end.
Solar.
Substituted
Solar.
the
Hold
null.
on a second.
Go ahead.
We did that live, and the sugar did raise it. I did it on webcam in Discord one time, and the sugar did raise it.
No, you missed the subtlety of what's being done here. They're righteous. That's not in contention.
Yeah, but he's got.
What actually happened there,
he's basically
righteous?
saying something. Go on.
What actually happened there was a substitution of the null. So you've suddenly got this second independent variable that's thrown in as the null to rule out electro what now? No. The null is going to be the antithesis of what you assume to be the cause of the effect. That would be varying the density of the medium. So the antithesis, if you vary the density of the medium, you don't see the effect that you're studying. That would be the phenomena of some things go up, some things go down, some things remain the same, neutral if you will. Well, that phenomena won't be observed if you change the density as the null, as opposed to, well, then it won't be altering the electro whatever effect that's held within the water if it's salt based. That's not how null works. But that's what's happened. A new non-IV null has been introduced. Don't know why, but that's what's happened. Maybe you can tell us.
Did he define electrostatics?
People still want gravity, don't you understand? So they're going to push this dielectric, whatever it is, acceleration, and they're going to try to debunk everything, especially the egg experiment. Boy, if we could fix that and turn that around, then we'll definitely get a downward bias.
What? It doesn't have a downward bias. The directionality is medium specific. Hold on, doing downward bias. Which way did the egg move?
I thought he said at the end that there's a downward bias. That's what I heard.
My question: which way did the egg move again?
Went up.
It went up.
Oh, by downward bias.
Let me say this. When I did that on camera, I did it live. I noticed the sugar one, the way it like was buoyant in the sugar, it was more like it was different. It was different than the salt one. I got them both to raise to the top, and then at that amount in, I noticed the buoyancy of them was like more floaty for the sugar one, and more like easy to sink and go up in the salt one. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the whole sugar is very syrupy, made the water thick. And salt didn't necessarily make the water thick. You needed 4 or 5 times the sugar to get that egg to raise. I was there when he did it.
Raised,
What
you
was
say?
it, like 5 times sugar and like 3 times salt?
In Planet Solar's question, there's this elephant that's I tried to address, and we've immediately gone back up to why did it go up? Right? Now, there's 2 issues. One, there's a subsection of people that think there's a downward bias that needs to be accounted for when that did not occur. That's the first problem. The second problem is a substitution of the null, which isn't the thing that was being varied, into having some sort of electricity force attached to it. This is kind of double. Go on, QE.
Electric what? Did you say, what was that word you used?
Electrical.
So I used electrostatics.
Yes, you
And
did.
Electrostatics is considered a branch of physics where they study electric charges at rest. So like the interaction
you don't know
between
what electrostatic forces are.
Sorry, who cares? That's fascinating.
No, I was going to get to the electrostatic part. I did bring it up in the beginning, but people just walked on by it. But go ahead. We can finish up with electrostatic after you're done. Go ahead.
I just want to add something really quick. I think we should just look at it like we don't have a horse in this race. Just look at it like as it presents itself, instead of like attacking it or not attacking it, or we should just look at it like
Who said anything
Yes.
about a horse in a race?
Well, let's not sound like condescending towards it. If there is something, it is. If there's not, there's not. We just take it for what it is. We don't have to get like too attached to it one way or the other. Because then when we get attached to something, a certain side, then bias creeps in. So let's keep bias out of the way and just look at things as it presents itself.
I don't
Now, if
understand
you,
who's being biased.
I didn't say anything in, in regards to who or whatever, but how do I put it?
I got that. I think it was in relation to me, how Nathan correctly identified that I've swapped the null inadvertently, but that I'm now presuming a new cause, which I haven't even set up the experiment to test. So like you're saying, don't extrapolate and start jumping down the next rabbit hole with an assumption-based motive. Rather, just look at what is. Yes, sugar water does also get the thing to rise. I stand corrected.
Yeah, all we're trying to do is figure out if electricity in the air has anything to do with helping these things happen. You know what I mean? We did
Electricity
notice
in
some
the
strange
air.
stuff about the water. Yeah, there's electricity in the air.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with the egg in the salt or sugar water?
So that's what we're trying to.
It's a
We're just trying
variable.
to say. Yeah,
It's a
because
variable. We're
it's
trying to like
conductive.
isolate a variable or like control a variable.
I don't even know what the claim is.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
it's
sugar-
Hold on.
at
Let's
this
just
point.
address
Yeah.
that one thing at a time. Yes, righteous. Control variable. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm pretty certain that the amperage that was run through the water by Anthony with the high voltage wires that he had dangled into it, he just had those turned off, didn't he? QE, they were turned off, the
Well-
high voltage wires.
Can I? Flat Earth Solar. He works in like grounding stuff. Could you explain that thing? That what you have to do, Flat Earth Server? I mean, Solar.
Yeah, so in solar energy, we've always got to ground the panels because they sort of develop an electrostatic charge that interferes with the transmission of the power. The same way that when an aeroplane lands from being in the air, it also needs to ground that electrostatic charge that's been built up while it's in the air. Reason I talk about this upward and downward is that there's a field called electromagnetic tethering, whereby they introduce a current to cause a weather balloon to rise or lower. So by introducing a certain frequency, they are able to ascend or descend in our atmosphere, almost as if they're using some kind of a field, and then either causing some interaction that they call it electromagnetic tethering. But the electrostatic force is like when you touch a doorknob and you get a shock. We're all experiencing this electrostatics from the air. And what we'd sort of, or what Riley and them had shown with the egg was that there was this density relationship. But what made me think about it was that if you now manipulate the density, but you were able to control the electrostatics, would you still have that rising of the egg? And I guess by demonstrating with sugar water that you can get it to rise, it's just that there is this electrostatic field around us, which, especially with solar, when you're placing panels on the third or fourth story on a building, it's collecting voltage, a much higher voltage at that height, and then you've got to disperse that into the grounding rod.
Okay, so if electrostatic charge, then displacement of egg. Yeah, man, science it.
No, not displacement of egg.
basically,
Oh, hold
I'm sorry.
on. What do you mean not displacement of egg? Do you know what the phenomena being studied is? Righteous.
I'm more looking myself personally. I'm more looking at how the phenomena of buoyancy and density works.
No, that's not the phenomena of buoyancy density. No. That's the IV, not the DV. The DV is some things go up, some things go down, some things don't move
Right.
at all. That's
All right.
that's the phenomena observed. Think
Let
of
me
it.
word it like this. So Riley's thing, okay, fine. We'll say it's a scientific experiment and everything, but now we're looking to control the other variables. that fit in more? Just kind of like when we boil water by raising temperature, we control the pressure. So the pressure, the altitude, is the controlled variable. So now we're looking at this Riley egg thing. Yes, buoyancy and density, up and down, but we're now looking to see what variables are there that we can account for and control them better, and see if we keep, let's say, the buoyancy and density at one level, and then manipulate the electricity and see if that affects it. Kind of like how you keep the temperature at a level with the egg. Sorry, I kind of mixed it
Yeah,
up
that's
a bit.
what I just
But if you
said.
keep the temperature,
That's what I just said, and you objected. So I was like,
All right,
okay,
all right.
okay, if electricity, then egg displacement. Go ahead and go forth and science it, if you will. Fine. You know, if you can cause the egg to do something by inducing electricity into the water, then okay, fine. You might find that in a given circumstance, like the example the flat earth solar gets, you can induce that effect. That's lovely. But generally speaking, are we going to be in a salt-based solution, generally speaking? No. Can you observe the exact same cause and effect relationship in other mediums? Yeah, it's medium specific. That's what's been proven in the experiment. Some things go up, some things go down, some things remain in equilibrium. What's the cause? Well, the density of the medium relative to the thing in it. That's it. You show it by varying that density, and that causes the effect. At that point, the book's closed. Now, can you induce the same effect? Well, you might be able to, but then you're talking about a folly in the respect that you're trying to induce the effect with a magnetic field. Now, if you can observe something that is in a magnetic field in nature, and you go, I wonder what causes that. For instance, I'll give you a for instance, spiders that can shoot up into the air because they've got a certain amount of electricity flowing through their web. For example, hypothetically speaking, you could go, there's a phenomenon I want to study, and you figure out that the cause of that effect is an electrostatic effect within that particular scenario. But then you're studying that effect, as opposed to some things go up, some things go down, some things remain neutral. Well, why? Well, depends on the medium. How dense it is, as shown in the experiment. That's it. Case closed. Unless you can show me a different phenomena.
That
Spiders on
spider
the web.
example, that's the electromagnetic tethering. And in that scenario, the spider didn't change its density, but it was able to either ascend or descend in the same way that the high altitude weather balloons, the density remains constant, but they're able to lower it into a different stratospheric layer to move the balloon where they want it to go. And in that, exactly like you say, it's a different study. So we'd have to go and study the electromagnetic relationship. But if density remains the same,
Wait a minute. So you saying the cause is the charge output of the spider? How do we determine that?
Sorry,
it has been.
sorry. How
No,
does this?
the spider's
Hello,
using the
hello, hello,
electricity from the air.
hello. Fascinating though that question is. This is not a zoo, right? Who cares?
That's how we know there's electricity in the air, because the spider uses the electricity
That's
is
truly
in
lovely.
the air.
That's really nice.
That's all.
Thank you. That's so
That led
wonderful
us
to know.
Okay, so listen, hold on. That led us to thinking about, okay, so there's electricity in the air. Would these conductors of electricity, like salt and certain other electrolytes, have anything like to add to the buoyancy? In other words, it's just a test to see what's going on with the electricity. How does it affect stuff?
Right.
That's all we're trying to do.
Okay, so to add to the already scientifically validated relative density disequilibrium explanation, further to that, you might be able to take one of the controlled variables and see if they can also affect it if you hold everything else constant and vary that within the same scenario. Yeah. So keep the density of the medium same, plop an egg in whatever it is you're plopping it in, and induce an electric field around it and see if you can make it go up or down. I've said that about 3 times. Wonderful. Go forth and science the shit out of it. I don't know what else to say. But when you get into, well, hold on, but spiders, yeah, spiders can fly on electricity. Wow, it's amazing. I just couldn't care less in terms of other than nature within Earth, which is fascinating, don't get me wrong, the nature of Earth, this spider and its electric arse, I couldn't care less. Who cares?
Yeah, but that was kind of the observed phenomenon for me.
Yeah, and if
No,
we were
I
what
see this
spider
thing
debate,
flying through the air.
yeah, I get it. If that was the phenomena, that's fascinating. Go forth and science. Spiders being able to fly on electricity, that's a fascinating phenomena. It just doesn't really affect the nature of my reality. It's an interesting folly. Again, I've said that twice.
Nathan, didn't university in America do that with spiders? They put them in a tank and they increased the electromagnetism and they called it tiptoeing and they witnessed the spiders doing it.
And?
Not exactly, no.
And?
There's no and to it. I'm just saying that someone has done it.
And that's really interesting. Meanwhile,
No,
hello. Meanwhile, we have been deceived at a fundamental scale about the nature of reality as a whole. Like, everything about the space we inhabit, the area of existence itself, has been lied about. Now, I understand that spiders and their electricity properties are fascinating, but I'm going to say it one more time because I've just had a big bill that I've authorised when I've got no money to pay it, and now I'm hearing about spiders' electrical arses. If this has a point relating to the nature of Earth, I'll let this continue. Otherwise, audience, am I wrong in my frustration here? Who cares about these spiders? Seriously.
Can I say why I brought it up? Is that the effect is things go up or down. We were told it was gravity. Then we've also determined can be a density relationship.
Stop.
And now we're also discovering
stop.
Could also be an electric relationship.
You're using a false comparison. When you say things, making it nice and ambiguous and vague, but then we focus on spiders and what they do. No. Things getting the effects of going up and down, scientifically validated to be medium specific in terms of the density of said medium and the density of the item travelling up or going down. But when you say things and then focus that ambiguous, applicable to everything term to spiders, that's where I've got to draw the line and say, no, I object there. No, because that isn't unilaterally true to everything what is occurring to spiders. Now, spider, like a little insect, you could say, well, you compare that to a mammal of some description, arbitrarily separated by category. Like, it doesn't matter that it's a mammal, it's just an object that's got legs and can move around, like your spider, right? Well, they don't fly into the air, do they? So how is this a reasonable comparison to things go up when you're talking about spiders? No, specifically spiders do that. That's why I'm saying I'm getting annoyed, because this doesn't relate unilaterally to the nature of existence. It just applies to that one phenomena with spiders. That's it.
It's not just spiders, though. Bees and beetles do it, don't they?
Oh, God. This is literally going to turn into what zoo debate.
No. So, Nathan, I brought up satellites, and with respect, you brought up the spider. So the satellites use a principle called electromagnetic tethering, and the spiders are simply using that same effect. It doesn't mean that the spiders generating the effect. It doesn't mean the spiders are generating the effect. They're just simply piggybacking on a known phenomena, which we use to ascend objects. And they say why a bumblebee should never be able to fly based on its wing diameter, till they determine that it's producing a certain harmonic that allows it to ascend or descend in this atmosphere. So if the effect we're studying is objects rise in some cases and sink in some cases based on the medium, we can also say objects rise or fall based on this principle, which is a known effect in science. So I also don't want it to be a zoo.
Doing it. It's not any stuff.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's not
just
unilaterally
these insects that are able.
Yeah, that's what I tried to make a moment ago, Rams, is my point. It's not unilaterally applicable. You want to substitute egg for almost anything. You can. You want to substitute you can even cross phase in terms of what you're describing and how it's applicable. change the phase completely from a gas to a liquid. Yeah, this is still true. So when you're like, well, no, a couple of insects do it, fascinating. And yeah, I keep saying this, go forth and science it. Fascinating stuff. But when it comes down to, well, now let's substitute in the original claim of gravity versus scientific validity to relative density versus now a sideline introduction that somehow muscled its way in as the null with electrostatics because of very specific phenomena, bees and spiders, that is then generalized out with those objects. And it's like, no, how is this occurring? Why are we on this merry dance? You know, if this is a phenomena that's worthy of study, fine, study it. At this stage, other than a null substitution for a non-phenomena that wasn't being studied, and hasn't been studied as far as I'm concerned, who's showing the experiments with this electrostatic disequilibrium effect? If they are, wonderful, I'll be interested in looking at it. I'm sure there is electricity effects that I should be concerned with deeply. But at this stage, knowing that it's spiders and bees doesn't make me think this is going to fundamentally change my non-opinion of gravity, my understanding of relative density, or the nature of existence in general. It's just an interesting folly.
Can I just add to that folly? I understand the point with regards to spiders and the likes. Whoever was making this point was linking it to tether propulsion in terms of systems. Well, this isn't an Earth-based technology. It's not demonstrated on Earth, and it's had the massive input of $1.9 million, which probably tells you a lot about whether it even works. But the place in which it supposedly works is hanging off of satellites in the vacuum of space. So I'm not a little confused as to the validation that we've got this technology that does this, and that's supported by bees. I think spiders. I think spiders is the best thing. The rest of it, as far as I can see, is look, it's not real. It's maths claiming to be happening on satellites in space. So I have real doubt as to this technology being genuine and used as well.
It
So
feels
I
like a
didn't
bit
say
of an
in
ether
space.
argument.
No, it's on weather balloons up in the high stratospheric layers. So not necessarily
He also said
floating in the
airplanes as well
What's the stratosphere?
when they touch down.
up in the stratosphere.
Have you got a link to this? I'm not seeing that anywhere. It's just talking, look, interstellar travel. Nothing about weather balloons. Space charge limits.
Well, don't assume he hasn't. What have you got, Solar?
That's what I'm asking. Could I have have you got a link for me to have a read about it? I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm saying I can't see anything
the
here.
search. So I got it wrong. In the electromagnetic field, they call it electrodynamic tethering. Electrodynamic.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
sure
what I had on the
wires,
screen. Electrodynamic tethers, EDTs.
which operate on electromagnetic principles as generators by converting their kinetic energy to electric energy.
Yeah. From
There was a
satellites,
test
though,
where
not weather
someone took
balloons.
beetle wings and he created a craft out of the beetle wings.
That's Russian dodgy stuff. That's got nothing to do with it. The point I'm just trying to clarify is what I'm reading is it says a tether satellite. It's not got mention of weather balloons or any application with weather balloons. It's just talking about satellites. That's what I'm doing. If you've got something on it, that would have some real data, wouldn't it? Weather balloons, but they're. So I'd just like to have a read of that. If you could link me up with where you've got this from, because the bits I can see are just talking about satellites in the and how the electromagnetic field of the ball Earth is what they move across to adjust their orbits. What it's saying.
There's a little video in the mainstream chat, in the main chat there. It shows the positive electrostatic force as an effect on helium balloons. You can check that out for yourself. It's right there in the main chat.
Yeah, I can rub a balloon on my jumper and demonstrate that.
Yeah. Why don't you take a look at the video and then have something to say?
Well, why
Can I
don't you
ask what it's
explain your
proving,
point
though? What is
instead
it
of me
proving?
having to go and look at the video and figure out what the point is you're making? It's not my claim.
Okay. He puts a positive charge on the balloons, and they sink. He
Yeah.
takes it off. What's the negative charge? They rise. That's simple.
And that means
electrostatics have an effect on things, and we're figuring out what they have an effect on. And there's one in the main chat if you want to look at it.
I rub it with my jumper and give it an opposite charge to the wall, it will stick to the wall.
You're talking about a helium balloon, right?
Yeah.
You're making the helium balloon go down with a positive electrostatic charge. You not get this. And then when you release the charge back to negative, it floats back up. You get that? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I guess
This description makes sense. Hold on. Your description makes sense. Hold on. Don't get annoyed.
Relax.
Okay,
Hawk,
hello.
Relax.
Relax, yeah. Yeah, your description does make sense. You're describing how you can induce an electrostatic force and cause things to move up and down. Seems perfectly reasonable. And very interesting.
Well, could you then perhaps do that to a rock that's on a scale and see if the weight changes?
Who knows? Depends on the kind of rock. There's a lot to this.
Why does it?
A lot of
Why
things
does it
are
depend?
because there's a lot of things that are more susceptible to static electricity than others. Some things are tougher.
So this
you might find a rock you might be able to make float. I don't know.
But this is why how you design an experiment is crucial. So the same way that an egg in a container of liquid is considering the relationship of the density or the medium around the egg, but you wouldn't necessarily construct that same experiment if you were simply wanting to do an electrostatic force, in the same way that you wouldn't say prove Einsteinian gravity, but you have to start with the Cavendish experiment, because the experiment will be designed to isolate variables to a point where a single variable can be analyzed. So taking a helium balloon, which is very buoyant and wanting to rise, and getting it to a point where it's now stationary with whatever mass is connected to it, and then causing either up or down movement, which is what we call gravity, which is why people think there's such a force as a buoyant or dense force governed by the big G in the equation, is the movement of up and down. So if we found another variable, then it just shows that the other one is not an independent variable for up and down movement. It's now it's just one of the dependent variables.
Dependent variables of the effect.
Okay, sorry, control variables. The effect is the rising or falling or deliberately causing that upward or downward motion or upward or downward acceleration.
And nobody would contest that. In the same way, when you boil a bit of water, right, you hold the pressure constant because it does have an effect on it. Yeah? And likewise, in general terms, you're never going to reach the point where you can get the water to just boil by itself by those effects naturally. You could induce them by changing the pressure massively, but obviously then you would say, well, the pressure is part of it, and it is. But when you're controlling to see what you can cause it in the same way you witnessed it in nature, so you witness a hot spring, what causes it to boil? Well, the heat is the predominant thing in that scenario at that pressure at sea level. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a varying effect by having one of the control variables influence the test, but it's not the overriding cause. In that instance, you apply heat to the water and it boils. Does that mean that pressure doesn't have any effect on it because it's held constant in that experiment? No, you can still vary it. it's still directly proportional to the pressure in terms of what temperature it will boil at, which you'll see the effect actually occurring. So yeah, it's directly linked. Now, in terms of experimental validity, about the 5th time I've said this, if you want to go forth in science, the electrostatic effects on whatever you're controlling it with in that scenario, let's just stick with the egg and salt water example. You want to say, okay, well, egg and salt water, I can actually have an influence over it a little bit with the amount of electricity that I pump through it. And you go, okay, that's cool. So we've got a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, according to you guys, in the air. So it's having a tiny, let's say, negligible effect on the egg when you vary the medium and its density. Okay, I will accept, notwithstanding that there is a tiny, negligible effect from the electricity claimed to be in the air that is having seemingly no effect, varied or otherwise, because there's no high voltage wires run through the damn thing. So it's not overall affecting whether or not the egg moves up or down when it plops out of a chicken and rolls into some water. You know, the density of the water that it plops into may have an effect, though, and that is universally true throughout whatever phase of whatever medium of whatever thing is passing through whatever always. You know, and that I can show with an experiment. Now, that doesn't mean the control variables can't have an influence. They can. That's why you hold them constant, so that you're not varying the pressure. You're not trying to heat up the water whilst elevating yourself in a bloody hot air balloon as you do it, because you might find that has an influence on the test. The overall independent variable isn't independent anymore and you haven't got empiricism. That could be a bit of a problem. That's why you hold these things constant. Anyway, I've kept this live show going just to get that little naggy rant out of the way. But with that, I am going to say, while I clear my throat, let's do that first. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smash the Super Chat PayPal link, as I've just had a 300 quid bill that I've authorised while I was on the live show. So yeah, please smash the PayPal link. It would be greatly appreciated. Liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!